Welcome into the first ever Spartan Spotlight. Hello everybody, I'm Kevin Schaefer, and we are now joined on the very first show for the first time, obviously, by the head men's soccer coach here at Missouri Baptist. That's Jake Alvernia. Jake, first off, thanks for coming on. And first question, the season's now underway. You guys are 6 games in, some ups and downs, a 2-4 record. How would you evaluate it so far?
The 6-game run-up, we're heading into conference, and the 6 games we've played so far, Kevin, have given us different looks. We've been presented with several different problems, and so it's given us a chance, the coaching staff, a chance to kind of evaluate how we respond to different situations and games. And I think individually, we want to improve on some different areas. Collectively, as a defensive unit, we certainly need to improve on a few things as well. But some good things offensively, some good things defensively, and then some areas that we want to work on for sure.
And this is your 3rd season as head coach for the Spartans. You also played here for a couple of years.
Yep.
You're also an assistant coach. I want to ask you now, why Missouri Baptist? What is it about this school that you like so much, and what keeps on bringing it back?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I talk a lot with the guys that I'm recruiting. I talk to them a lot about the choice that I made to come here and the unintended consequences of it, really. You know, initially the choice wasn't to come here for any other reason than to play soccer with a few buddies that were transferred in. But what I found here was a home. The Christian values, the smaller atmosphere, the family type atmosphere that's created and cultivated here at Missouri Baptist was fantastic. And so in a lot of ways, it led me into how I made decisions in the business world after I graduated from Missouri Baptist. So you know, a lot of positives came out of my decision to come here. But when you make those decisions as a 19, 20-year-old, you're not always informed about what you're really doing. So you know, I really enjoyed my time here.
And you mentioned it, you also played here, that was back in 95 and 96, the 2-year captain. Now I want to ask you, you're obviously the coach here now, what's the biggest difference between Jake Alvernia, the player, and Jake, the coach?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think, you know, sometimes it's a matter of being a doer to a manager of doers, and as a captain, you have a little bit more responsibility. And maybe in a lot of ways, or in some ways, it prepares you to go on and manage in whatever capacity. And there's certainly some differences in terms of the wins, losses weigh on you a bit more, I think, as a coach or manager than it does as a player. Although in a lot of ways it's been similar in terms of, I think I realized that I still hate losing more than I like winning. And so you know, I'm pretty competitive in that respect. So that may not have changed, but there's a lot more responsibility. Obviously, when you're a captain, you're looking out for your teammates, but as a coach, you're responsible for them in so many other different ways that it's hard to comprehend until you're actually in that position.
And so you obviously love the sport of soccer. Now I want to ask, when did you start playing the sport?
Sure.
And what is it about the sport that you love so much?
Well, I started out when I was 6 years old playing. I didn't really have a family background in soccer, so it was just all you know, learned love early on. And because I liked the sport so much, I was given a book by my family, and I was probably 8 or 9 years old. And there was a quote in there that kind of defined how I looked at the sport, and it was William Shankly from Liverpool, which is an English club, and you know, he was talking about how people are so fanatic about the sport, and you think he's going one way and it was completely the other. He said some people think that this sport is a matter of life and death, but they don't understand it's much more than that. And so that kind of summed it up for me. I thought, that's fantastic. That's who I am, I guess, you know.
And right now, outside of soccer, we know all about that. And you also owned a business, though, for 9 years.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that experience, what that was like?
It was a really good experience. After I graduated from Missouri Baptist, I got into management pretty quick. I moved up. I was assistant manager, then associate manager, and then a mortgage company out of Denver was looking for a branch manager here in St. Louis, and I went into that, and then I did that for another 4 years before I made the decision to open up my own business. And it was It was a scary one. We had a lot of conversation, a lot of prayer in terms of my wife and I, because she was a stay-at-home mom, and so it was a big decision for us, and one that I don't regret. I thought it was a great experience for me. I think probably the biggest enjoyment I had out of running the business was just helping other families provide for their, other employees that help provide for their families, and that was probably the biggest reward out of running your own business, was just helping people provide for their families.
All right, so now we know about the soccer, we know about the business. Now, before we let you go, we're going to try and uncover something new about you, Coach. What's something about Jake Alvernia that most people don't?
I've written poetry. I've philosophized, painter. When I was younger in college, I watched a show, it was The Joy of Painting or something like that, Bob Ross, and he was a quirky little dude, but he was funny and he was good. And so watching that show, I thought, well, I'll dabble in painting a little bit. So I oil painted for a while. Never sold anything, gave it to family, but never sold anything. Yeah, so that's something that people might not know.
Hey, I wouldn't have known. A painter, a poet, even also the men's soccer coach here at Missouri Baptist. Coach Alvernia, thanks for coming on.
You bet. Thanks, Kevin.
Yep, that was the first ever Spartan Spotlight for Jake Alvernia. I'm Kevin Schaefer. We'll see you next week.